Imagine this. The year is 1999. A team of workers slowly descends into a dark, forgotten tunnel carved deep beneath the Bavarian Alps. The air is cold. The walls are stone. There is absolute silence, except for the faint echo of their footsteps. And then they see it, sitting alone in the rubble, covered in rust and dust, untouched for over 75 years. A single milk churn, a barrel, just sitting there, waiting. But this was no ordinary tunnel. This ground once belonged to Adolf Hitler. These passages were built by the SS, and this barrel, this forgotten, rusting barrel, may have held secrets that shook an entire era. Today, we are going underground. We are going beneath the Berghof, Hitler's mountain paradise, to uncover the truth that bombs couldn't destroy, that fires couldn't erase, and that the earth kept buried for 3/4 of a century. Buckle up, because what lies beneath is darker than anyone imagined. Before we go underground, we need to understand the place above it. The Berghof, German for mountain court, was Adolf Hitler's personal Alpine retreat nestled in the mountains above the town of Berchtesgaden in Bavaria. This wasn't just a holiday home. This was where Hitler spent more time than anywhere else apart from his wartime headquarters. This was his sanctuary, his command center in the clouds. It started small. In 1916, a modest mountain chalet called Haus Waschenfeld was built on the slopes of Obersalzberg. Hitler purchased it in 1933 using royalties from Mein Kampf. But Hitler was never a man who thought small. Between 1935 and 1936, the little chalet was demolished and replaced with a grand, sprawling Alpine mansion, complete with a breathtaking 25-foot picture window that framed the Austrian mountains like a painting. World leaders visited here. Neville Chamberlain came to this house. Mussolini sat in these rooms. And all the while, no one suspected what was being quietly constructed in the darkness below. Now, back to that barrel. Back to that single rusted milk churn sitting alone in an abandoned tunnel. When the Obersalzberg Documentation Center opened in 1999, workers began exploring the underground passages beneath Hitler's mountain estate. What they found were tunnels stretching over 6 kilometers, carved 60 meters beneath the surface, built between 1943 and 1945. And throughout those kilometers of stone corridors, across all those forgotten rooms and collapsed chambers, only one object had survived: that milk churn. But why a milk churn? Here is where the story becomes haunting. Over 6,000 forced laborers, brought from Czechoslovakia and Italy against their will, had been used to dig these tunnels. Slaves, human beings forced to carve Hitler's underground empire out of solid rock. And twice a day these workers were fed. Their food, watery soup, was carried to them in containers exactly like this one. That rusting barrel wasn't just metal, it was a witness. It had stood there as men suffered, it had watched as an empire collapsed, and it had waited silently for 75 years for someone to find it again. But the barrel was only one small part of something enormous. Beneath Obersalzberg lay one of the most sophisticated underground complexes ever built in Nazi Germany. Martin Bormann, Hitler's closest aide and the man who controlled access to the Führer, had secretly overseen the construction of over 3 kilometers of interconnected tunnels. And this wasn't just a bomb shelter, this was a fully functional underground city. Hitler's personal tunnel began in the basement of the Berghof itself. It connected to a central passage that housed foreign affairs offices, record rooms, a kitchen, a telephone switchboard, and private quarters for Berghof staff. Deeper sections contained reinforced chambers for the senior Nazi leadership, designed so that the entire command structure could survive a direct Allied bombing campaign. They had electricity, ventilation, running water. They had planned for every scenario, that is, except total defeat. April 25, 1945, the sky above Obersalzberg turned black. Hundreds of RAF Lancaster bombers descended on the mountain complex in one of the final major bombing raids of the European War. The attack was devastating. Buildings collapsed, tunnels flooded with debris. And when American forces arrived on May 4th, they found something extraordinary. The SS had already been there. They had torched the Berghof themselves, ensuring that nothing useful would fall into Allied hands. The fire burned for days. But deep underground, the tunnels told a different story. French troops arriving first discovered kilometers of passages filled with the plunder of an entire continent. Artwork looted from France, Poland, the Netherlands, and beyond. Thousands of bottles of rare wine, tons of supplies, and, in what became one of the more bizarre discoveries of the entire war, an extensive collection of bras accumulated by Reich Marshal Hermann Göring. The most prized item taken by American soldiers? Hitler's own globe, the Columbus Globe for state and industry leaders, which disappeared into American hands and became one of history's most famous wartime trophies. By 1952, even the ruins of the Berghof were gone. On April 30th, deliberately chosen as the 7th anniversary of Hitler's suicide, the Bavarian government dynamited what remained of the structure. The reason was chilling in its logic. They could not allow the site to become a neo-Nazi pilgrimage destination. Today, there is nothing there but trees, a crumbling section of wall, and a small information board. Here is where the mystery deepens, because not everything was found, not even close. The Nazis looted gold, silver, currency, artwork, and cultural treasures from across every country they occupied. After the war, the Allied Monuments Men, the real-life team later immortalized in film, recovered stolen items from over 1,050 locations across Germany and Austria alone, including abandoned salt mines packed floor to ceiling with paintings and sculptures worth billions. But despite those extraordinary recoveries, an estimated $37 billion worth of Nazi-looted material has never been found. Paintings by Raphael, Vermeer, and Michelangelo, tons of gold, irreplaceable historical documents. Where did it all go? Some researchers believe it was hidden in Alpine lakes. Others point to sealed tunnels across Eastern Europe. And some, drawing on evidence that not all of Obersalzberg's underground network has ever been fully explored, believe the answer may still lie beneath those Bavarian mountains. Those tunnels that even today remain partially inaccessible, waiting, still keeping their secrets. Think about that milk churn one more time. Just a piece of rusted metal, and yet it outlasted the Reich that built the tunnels around it. It outlasted the man who ordered them built. It outlasted the war, the bombings, the fires, and 7 decades of silence. Sometimes the most powerful historical artifacts are not the gold bars or the stolen paintings. Sometimes history speaks loudest through the things that were left behind, forgotten, abandoned, and waiting to be found. And that $37 billion in missing treasure, it's still out there, somewhere beneath a mountain, inside a sealed tunnel, or resting at the bottom of a cold Alpine lake. The secrets of the Third Reich are still waiting. If you think this is one of history's greatest unsolved mysteries, hit that like button right now. Subscribe so you never miss another deep dive into the hidden corners of history. And drop a comment below. What do you think was really inside that barrel? I read every single one. Until next time, keep questioning, keep digging, and never stop looking for the truth.